America has rightly had in its Constitution, understandably, this right that the Supreme Court actually made a decision upon a couple of years ago, the right to bear arms. In fact, George Washington, as you know, mandated that anyone, male 18 and above, had to own a musket. But times then and times today under the Constitution are different in terms of criminals, in terms of mentally unstable, fugitives, drug addicts, domestic abusers, that should have absolutely no access to these weapons. In fact, it's mandated in law that they cannot. But the system that is set up in various states for the enforcement of that and the failure to have an assault weapons ban, which decreased for the 10 years we did have one between 1994 and 2004, actually decreased by 66% the weapons that were forbidden from being used in crime. It was immense. The fact that our ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, can do only one unannounced enforcement inspection per year. How un-resourced they are. And so my take on this is that there is no way we cannot do the proper balance between the constitutional right for those, as you well said, that live 50 miles away and a law-abiding citizen just wants to have the private right to a firearm, and the right to hunt, but not to have the ability of a child lock on these weapons, so that we don't have the same laws across this land enforcing gun shows that are often unlicensed, because 40% of all firearms are sold by unlicensed private dealers. And so this is just common sense. That's all that's being asked for. And I think if we had those, you would not see any fighter pilot from England ever saying that we don't have the proper balance. But we under-resource it, we don't enforce it. And just here in Pennsylvania alone, the NRA, after bringing suits that were thrown out by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania against municipalities that said if you lose a firearm, you have only a certain period of time to report it. They brought into legislation into Pennsylvania that they're trying to get passed now to say you can't. It is not under Pennsylvania's Constitution illegal for the NRA to bring a suit against a municipality that if they want a law ordinance to say you lose a gun, you got to report it. Imagine how many guns get stolen, don't get reported, so that we aren't able to then trace it. These are just common sense things to make a secure America where you can still go out and hunt and have a firearm for your own safety if you're doing it by as a law-abiding citizen.
We're talking with Joe Sestak, a hero in this country, Navy Vice Admiral, a member of Congress, and as I said, the world was right to be a senator today from the great state of Pennsylvania. You know, I am scheduled to talk to two members of Congress, two African-Americans, Congressman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who you served with, and Danny Davis of Chicago, who you served with, and particularly in the case of Mr. Davis. As we talk about this tragedy that affects so many people today in Colorado, unfortunately in America, not reported very well, and in places like Chicago and Washington, D.C., we have endless gun violence, black on black, African-American on African-American crime. And I caught I think, one of the great movies done on violence in the inner city the other day, Boys in the Hood, Singleton movie. And at the end, the now well-known actor Ice Cube talks about the fact that I watch on television what goes on in the Middle East and what goes on around the world, but there's not any information about my brother here in the hood. And, you know, I think if we have to start somewhere, and we need to rescue our brothers and sisters in the inner city. And it happens there every day. We just don't report on it. And I know the time you've spent in Philadelphia, which is also has been unfortunate in Pittsburgh. But I think we need to look at it in a full view. Your thoughts?
Three. Question. Look, back just in 2008, downtown Philadelphia, Police Sergeant Stephen Lisbinski was shot and killed responding to a bank robbery. The rifle that was used was a Chinese SKS assault rifle that would have been banned if the assault weapons ban had not ended in 2004. And so we are asking our police to go into some situations where the adversary is better armed than the police. And we're asking them to go into situations that we ask our military members to go into, like when they were in Iraq or in Afghanistan, going against heavy assault weapons on the adversary. And again, I come back to, police officers' deaths in the year after President Clinton passed the Brady Bill, the assault weapons ban, that is, in 1994. In the next year and a half, deaths of police officers in that inner city, just as an example, right there, will drop from 16% of all murders of police officers down to 0. And think, when you drop the amount of assault weapons bans, this is just one example, down by 2/3 over a decade that are used in crime, how those in the inner city are going to be much more secure. When I ran for Senate, just to show you the opposite end of the spectrum, I'll never forget my opponent saying, my idea, he said, of gun control is a steady aim.
Jesus.
Yep, people do commit these crimes using a gun.
Minute 30.
It is, however, how can you prevent the wrong people from getting access, certainly to the wrong types, all guns, the wrong people, but those weapons that are military should not be in the hands. You don't need them to hunt for deer. There is the right. And I lived with guns my entire 31 years in the military. I would defend the constitutional right to a gun to the very last measure. But there are commonsensical limits. Even the Supreme Court in its decision said this is not a slippery slope. There are certain rights that have to be asserted for a secure population, a secure community. In the decision, they said, when they said a citizen has the right to it. Now, let's get the right balance.
Congressman, I wish you were still with us in the legislative process. We need leaders, and you are certainly one of them. It is a pleasure, although not a day that I would like to repeat to have you on again. But your words are so valued at this time, and I thank you for spending a little bit with us. All the best, and may we meet on more pleasant days than what we have.
Agree, and in the meantime, we'll keep them all in our prayers and thoughts. Thanks very much, Jeff. Have a good day.
You too. It was Joe Sestak, one of my heroes. We'll be back. Let's try to find some more. Rebuild America. Let's rebuild it together.